The massive council chamber buzzed with the soft clicking and humming sounds that filled any room where dozens of alien species gathered. Ambassador of the Empire stood at the central podium, his four arms gesturing as he spoke. His green skin gleamed under the chamber's lights as he presented his report to the Galactic Peacekeeping Council. "Fellow council members," began, his voice carrying the formal tone required for such meetings. "Today we discuss the species to achieve faster-than-light travel. They call themselves humans." A low murmur ran through the chamber. New species always caused excitement. Some brought amazing technology, others brought trade opportunities, a few brought trouble. The council had learned to be careful. Activated a holographic display that showed images of Earth and its surrounding space. The images revealed a blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. Small metal ships moved between the planet and its single moon. "The humans come from a planet they call Earth," continued. "They achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 of their years ago. Their technology is basic but functional. Their ships are crude metal constructions, but they work well enough for simple trade and exploration." Council member of the Aquatic Coalition raised one of her tentacles. "What do we know of their military capabilities?" His expression showed mild amusement. "Their military appears to follow standard patterns for young species. They have armies, navies, and air forces. Nothing unusual. Their weapons use chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles, very primitive compared to our plasma and particle beam weapons." "And their social structure?" asked Elder Morn of the Silicon Confederation, his rock-like face showing interest. "The humans are divided into many smaller groups they call nations," replied. "These nations sometimes fight among themselves, but they have recently achieved a period of relative peace. They seem eager to trade and learn from other species. Their diplomats are polite and reasonable." The holographic display changed to show recordings of human entertainment. Movies depicting wars, explosions, and battles filled the air above the podium. "There is one concerning aspect," admitted. "Humans seem to have an unusual relationship with violence. Their entertainment often shows conflict and war. Their history is filled with constant fighting. Yet when we meet them, they speak of peace and cooperation." Ambassador, the human representative, sat quietly in the new member section. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and calm eyes. She had been invited to observe the discussion about her species, though she was not yet allowed to vote. "Perhaps this violence in their entertainment is how they release their aggressive urges," suggested Council Member Vex of the Hive Minds. "Many species use art and stories to explore emotions they cannot express in real life." Nodded. "That is our assessment as well. The humans we have met are peaceful traders and explorers. Their ambassador has been nothing but professional and cooperative during her time here." The discussion continued for another hour. Various council members asked questions about human biology, technology, and culture. The answers painted a picture of a typical young species. Humans were aggressive by nature but seemed to be learning to control those urges. They were not particularly advanced, but they were not dangerous either. Finally, Supreme Chancellor called for the vote. The massive being's many eyes focused on the assembly as his deep voice filled the chamber. "The question before us is simple," announced. "Do we grant humanity probationary membership in the Galactic Peacekeeping Council?" The vote was not close. Of the 237 council members present, 212 voted in favor. Only 19 voted against, with 6 abstentions. "Welcome to the Galactic Peacekeeping Council, Ambassador," Chancellor said formally. "Your species is granted probationary membership with all associated rights and responsibilities." Ambassador stood and bowed politely. "Thank you, Chancellor and honored council members. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community." As the session ended and various species began filing out of the chamber, Smaller groups formed to discuss the day's business. Ambassador found himself approached by several colleagues. "Do you really think they are as harmless as they appear?" asked Intelligence Officer, a tall, thin being with large black eyes. Considered the question. Their technology is primitive, their ships are slow, their weapons are chemical-based. What threat could they possibly pose to the galaxy? Still, persisted, something feels wrong about them. Did you see how calm their ambassador remained throughout the entire discussion? Even when we talked about their violent entertainment, she showed no emotion at all. "Humans pride themselves on emotional control," replied. "It is probably a survival trait from their violent past." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Sector Admiral, a massive reptilian whose species had dominated space warfare for thousands of years. "I reviewed the human fleet compositions," rumbled. "Nothing impressive. Their largest ships carry maybe 50 crew members. Their weapons are projectile-based. A single council cruiser could destroy their entire space force without effort." Nodded but looked unconvinced. "Perhaps, but I want to keep watching them closely." Meanwhile, Ambassador was gathering her materials and preparing to leave. As she walked toward the exit, she activated a small communication device. "Control, this is, the vote passed. We are now probationary members." A voice responded from the device, too quiet for alien ears to hear. "Understood, Ambassador. Should we begin Phase 2 operations?" Paused near the massive doors of the chamber. Around her, aliens of dozens of species continued their conversations about trade, territory, and politics. None of them paid attention to the quiet human woman. "Not yet," said softly. "Let them get used to us first. We want to seem harmless for as long as possible." "Copy that. How long do you think we have before they figure out what we really are?" Looked back at the chamber where the council was already discussing their next assignment for humanity. They had given her species control over Sector 7, a quiet region with minimal strategic importance. Perfect for what came next. "Hard to say," she replied. "But knowing humans, probably not long. We are not good at staying quiet forever." As she walked through the corridors of the council station, Ambassador allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had just invited humanity to join their club. Soon, they would learn that some invitations changed everything. The council had no idea what they had just done. Intelligence Officer sat in his darkened office, surrounded by floating holographic displays filled with data about humanity. 3 months had passed since the council granted the humans probationary membership, and could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong with the official assessment. The first display showed intercepted communications between human trading vessels. Most of the conversations were normal business talk about cargo, destinations, and profit margins, but scattered throughout were casual comments that made no sense. "Hey, heard your brother got accepted into the Rangers," one human trader had said to another. "Yeah, he is excited about selection training. Says they are going to drop him in some jungle for 3 weeks with just a knife," had replied, laughing. Had run the conversation through the translation computers multiple times. Each time, they confirmed that humans were apparently abandoning their military personnel in dangerous wilderness areas armed with only primitive bladed weapons. And somehow, this was considered normal training. The second display showed what humans called their military structure. This was where things became truly confusing. According to human sources, every major nation on Earth maintained something called special forces. The names alone were troubling: Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Special Air Service, Green Berets, and dozens of others. What disturbed was not that humans had elite military units. Most species did. What disturbed him was how casually humans discussed training that would violate every galactic law regarding treatment of prisoners and soldiers. He activated another recording. this one from a human military documentary that had been freely shared with alien researchers. A calm human narrator described something called Hell Week. Candidates receive fewer than 4 hours of sleep over 5.5 days, the narrator explained. They are subjected to extreme physical stress, cold water exposure, and constant mental pressure. Only those who demonstrate the ability to continue functioning under impossible conditions will advance to the next phase of training. Had checked the translation 3 times. Humans were deliberately torturing volunteers from their own military and calling it training. The documentary showed humans running through mud while carrying heavy logs, swimming in freezing water, and performing physical tasks that would hospitalize most galactic species. Worse, the humans filming the documentary seemed proud of this treatment. The third display contained the most disturbing information of all, had managed to obtain a partial list of human special operations units. There were over 100 distinct organizations across Earth's various nations. Each one seemed to specialize in a different type of warfare. Delta Force specialized in what humans called direct action and counterterrorism. Navy SEALs focused on operations in water and what they termed unconventional warfare. The Special Air Service conducted deep reconnaissance and hostage rescue. Russian were trained for special reconnaissance and something called asymmetric warfare. Every term was translated correctly, but together they painted a picture that made no sense. How could one species need so many different types of elite soldiers? What enemies were they preparing to fight? The door to his office opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador entered, looking tired after another long council session. "Still studying our new members?" asked, settling into a chair designed for his four-armed frame. "I cannot understand them," admitted, gesturing at the displays. According to their own records, humans maintain more elite military units than the rest of the galaxy combined. Each unit appears to be trained for specific types of combat that we have never encountered. Examine the nearest display, which showed images of humans rappelling from flying vehicles while carrying weapons. Perhaps they are just very thorough in their military planning. "Look at this," said, activating a new recording. The display showed a human crawling through a narrow tunnel filled with mud and water. This is from something called seer training. They teach their soldiers to survive in enemy territory by eating insects and hiding for weeks at a time. "Interesting but not alarming," replied. Activated another display. This is from their maritime special operations training. They teach soldiers to swim impossible distances underwater, plant explosive devices on enemy ships, and conduct what they call beach reconnaissance on hostile shores. His expression became more serious. "That does sound more concerning." "It gets worse," continued. He brought up a recording of humans practicing something called close quarters combat. The display showed soldiers moving through buildings, clearing rooms with precise movements, and engaging multiple targets with shocking speed and accuracy. Their training scenarios assume they will be fighting enemies on every type of terrain imaginable, explained. Arctic conditions, jungle environments, urban areas, underwater, underground, even in zero gravity. They practice techniques for fighting in situations that most species would consider impossible. Was quiet for a long moment, studying the images of humans training in environments that looked like alien worlds. "Have you discussed this with the council?" "I tried," replied. "Chancellor said I was being paranoid. Elder Morn suggested that humans are just naturally aggressive and like to prepare for unlikely scenarios. Most council members think these special forces are just regular soldiers with impressive names." The two aliens sat in silence, watching humans demonstrate combat techniques that neither of their species had ever seen before. The humans moved with a fluid precision that seemed almost supernatural. They coordinated their actions without apparent communication. They adapted to new situations instantly. "There is something else," said quietly. He activated a final display that showed a conversation between two human military officers. "I intercepted this communication last week." The recording played. Two humans in military uniforms were discussing upcoming training exercises. "How are the new recruits handling the mountain phase?" one asked. "Better than expected," the other replied. "We lost a few to injuries, but the ones who made it through are exceptional. I think this class might produce some real operators." "Good, we will need them if things go bad out there. The galaxy is a dangerous place." The recording ended, and looked at each other with growing concern. "They are preparing for galactic warfare," said slowly. "That is what worries me," replied. "They speak about fighting alien enemies as if it is inevitable, and based on their training they are not planning to fight fair." Stood up, his four arms showing agitation. "We need more information. How many of these special forces do humans actually have?" Pulled up his most troubling data file. According to human military records, each major nation maintains between 5 and 20 elite units. The total number of special operations personnel on Earth exceeds 200,000 individuals. 200,000. Voice rose in alarm. That is larger than most planetary defense forces. "And remember," added, "these are not regular soldiers. These are troops who have completed training that would be considered torture by galactic standards. Each one is trained to operate independently in hostile territory against overwhelming odds." Began packing the small office. "We need to bring this to the full council, if humans are secretly building an invasion force." "Based on what evidence?" interrupted. "Training videos and casual conversations. The council will say we are seeing threats where none exist." "Then what do you suggest?" Looked at the displays showing humans doing impossible things with casual confidence. "We watch, we learn, and we hope that if they are planning something, we figure it out before it is too late." As if summoned by their conversation, a priority message appeared on its communication system. The alert indicated an emergency situation requiring immediate council attention. Both aliens looked at the message with growing dread. Somewhere in the galaxy, something terrible was about to happen, and they had a sinking feeling that they were about to find out what humans really use their special forces for. The emergency session of the Galactic Peacekeeping Council convened within 6 hours of the first distress signals. Supreme Chancellor's massive form dominated the center podium as species representatives hurried to take their seats. The chamber buzzed with urgent conversations in dozens of languages. "Order, order," Chancellor's voice boomed through the chamber. "We face a crisis that demands immediate action." The main holographic display activated, showing 3 star systems on the outer rim of council space. Red warning symbols flashed over each system as data scrolled across subsidiary screens. At 3:47 Galactic Standard Time, the Dominion launched simultaneous attacks on 3 neutral worlds, the Chancellor announced. "Station, New Geneva Colony and Harmony Outpost are now under occupation." Ambassador stood, his 4 arms trembling with anger. "The violated every treaty in existence. These are civilian colonies with no military value." "The situation is worse than a simple invasion," replied Admiral, the Council's senior military commander. His reptilian features were grim as he accessed the tactical displays. "They have taken hostages. According to our estimates, nearly 50,000 civilians are being held across the 3 worlds." The chamber erupted in outraged voices. Species representatives shouted demands for immediate military action. Others called for diplomatic solutions. The noise grew so loud that Chancellor had to activate the chamber's sound dampening system. "There is more," the Chancellor continued once order was restored. "We have received the demands." A new display appeared, showing the face of Warlord's supreme leader of the Dominion. The reptilian warrior's message played for the entire council. "Weak children of the council," his voice hissed through the speakers. "For too long you have our rightful territories. Now we hold your precious civilians. Our demands are simple. Surrender the Vega sector and the trade routes to control, or watch your people die slowly." The message ended with images of frightened civilians being herded into makeshift prison camps by heavily armed soldiers. The aliens in the chamber sat in stunned silence. Intelligence officer stood up. "What are the military options?" Admiral activated a tactical overview of the 3 occupied worlds. Limited. They have positioned their forces in heavily populated civilian areas. Any direct assault would result in massive civilian casualties. Our fleet weapons are designed for space combat, not precision ground operations in urban environments. "What about special operations?" asked Elder Morn. "Surely we have troops trained for hostage rescue." The Admiral's expression grew darker. "We have tried. 3 rescue attempts have been made over the past 18 hours. All failed." New images appeared on the display, showing the aftermath of the failed rescue missions. Burning council vehicles, wounded peacekeepers being evacuated, and most horrifying of all, civilian bodies being displayed by triumphant warriors. The first mission attempted to infiltrate station through the main docking bay, Admiral explained. Sensors detected the team before they reached the civilian areas. 15 peacekeepers died, along with over 100 hostages killed in retaliation. The chamber was deathly quiet as the Admiral continued. The second mission tried a stealth approach to New Geneva colony. Patrol units discovered the team 3 kilometers from their target. This time, they killed 200 civilians and broadcast the executions across the colony's communication network. Ambassador K of the Crystalline Assembly spoke in a shaking voice. "And the third mission?" "Complete disaster," Admiral admitted. "We attempted a coordinated assault on Harmony Outpost using our best special warfare units. They were waiting for us. They had somehow anticipated every aspect of our plan. We lost 30 elite soldiers and gained nothing. The response was to execute 500 civilians in the colony's main square." Chancellor looked around the chamber with despair in his ancient eyes. "They have given us 72 hours to respond to their demands. If we do not surrender the requested territories, they will begin executing 1,000 civilians every hour until we comply." The debate that followed was painful to witness. Some council members demanded that they surrender the territories to save innocent lives. Others argued that giving in to terrorist demands would only encourage more attacks. Military leaders explained again and again that they had no viable rescue options. Through it all, Ambassador sat quietly in the human section, reviewing reports on her personal data tablet. She had not spoken during the entire emergency session, but noticed that she was constantly receiving and sending messages through her communication device. Finally, as the debate reached its 4th hour with no resolution in sight, Ambassador stood up. "Supreme Chancellor, may I address the Council?" The chamber fell silent, looked surprised but nodded. "The representative from humanity may speak." Walked to the secondary podium with calm, measured steps. Her voice was steady as she addressed the assembled aliens. "Honored council members, humanity offers to assist in resolving this crisis." The silence that followed was broken by derisive laughter from several species representatives. Ambassador N of the military caste stood up, his massive frame towering over the chamber. "With respect to our new members," N said with obvious contempt, "what could humanity possibly offer that our advanced military forces cannot provide? Your species has been in space for barely 50 years. You have no experience with complex military operations." His expression did not change. "We have experience with hostage rescue operations." "So do we," Admiral interrupted. "As you have seen, such operations have failed catastrophically." Because you are trying to fight an honorable war against dishonorable enemies, replied. They are terrorists hiding behind civilian shields. They cannot be defeated using conventional military tactics. Elder Morn leaned forward. And you believe humanity can succeed where the galaxy's finest warriors have failed? Yes. The simple answer sent a ripple of amazement through the chamber. The confidence in his voice was absolute, as if she was stating an obvious fact rather than making a bold claim. Chancellor studied the human ambassador carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Give us 72 hours, said. Allow human special operations teams to attempt the rescue. If we fail, the Council can proceed with whatever action you deem appropriate. And if your people are captured or killed, asked, genuinely concerned. Then you will have lost nothing but time, replied, but I do not believe that will happen. The debate that followed was intense but brief. With civilian lives hanging in the balance and no other viable options, the Council voted to allow the humans to attempt what seemed impossible. As the session ended and preparations began, approached Ambassador in the corridor outside the chamber. Are you certain about this? He asked quietly. They are not simple criminals. They are experienced warriors who have terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Looked at him with those calm human eyes that had troubled him from the beginning. Officer, you have been studying human military capabilities for months. Tell me, what conclusion have you reached? Hesitated. Your training methods seem excessive for normal military operations. Because they are not designed for normal military operations, replied. They are designed for exactly this type of situation. As she walked away to coordinate with human forces, felt a chill run through his long frame. For 3 months, he had been trying to understand what human special forces were really designed to do. Now he was about to find out. Somewhere in the galaxy, units with names like Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and Special Air Service were preparing to show the galaxy what humans called a rescue operation. They had no idea what was coming for them. The Council's emergency command center had been hastily converted into an observation deck for the human rescue operation. Representatives from dozens of species crowded around holographic displays, showing real-time feeds from all 3 occupied worlds. The atmosphere was tense as everyone waited to see if humanity could accomplish the impossible. Ambassador stood at the central console, wearing a communication headset that connected her directly to human command forces. Her calm demeanor had not changed, even as the deadline for the ultimatum approached. Human forces report ready for deployment, she announced to the watching aliens. Operations will commence simultaneously across all 3 targets in 30 minutes. Supreme Chancellor leaned forward in his massive chair. How many troops are you deploying? 48 personnel total, replied without emotion. The silence that followed was broken by Ambassador N's harsh laughter. 48 soldiers against entire occupation forces. This is suicide, not a rescue mission. Intelligence officer studied the tactical displays more carefully. Something was wrong with the human deployment. According to the screens, human ships had approached the 3 worlds but had not landed any troops. Instead, the vessels seemed to be maintaining position in high orbit. Ambassador called out, our sensors show no human ground forces on any of the target worlds. Correct, replied. Insertion phase has not yet begun. Admiral examined his own displays with growing confusion. Where are your troops? We see no transport ships, no landing craft, no signs of military deployment. You will, said simply. The main display suddenly activated, showing a transmission from Warlord on station. The commander appeared on screen, surrounded by armed guards in what looked like the colony's central administration building. Pathetic humans, snarled. Your deadline expires in 30 minutes. Where is your mighty rescue force? Do you think to frighten them with empty threats? The transmission cut off. Around the command center, alien representatives exchanged worried glances. Even the humans' strongest supporters were beginning to doubt the wisdom of this plan. Human teams are now beginning insertion, announced. Every alien in the room focused on their displays, trying to spot the human assault forces. Minutes passed with no visible activity. The orbital sensors showed nothing unusual. Ground-based surveillance detected no incoming aircraft or vehicles. Then noticed something strange on the underwater monitoring systems around New Geneva Colony. There are movement readings in the coastal waters, he reported, but the signatures are too small to be vehicles. Probably local sea life, dismissed Admiral. On Harmony Outpost, automated sensors registered brief atmospheric disturbances at high altitude, but when monitoring systems focused on those areas, they found nothing but empty sky. At station, waste management sensors in the colony's underground systems began detecting unusual vibrations, as if something was moving through the old mining tunnels that connected to the civilian areas. "What are we looking for?" Chancellor asked, his frustration evident. "Contact in 15 minutes, replied, checking her communication device. "Contact with what?" Admiral demanded. "We cannot see any human forces." Looked up from her console with what might have been the slightest smile. "That is the point." At exactly 15 minutes before the deadline, everything changed. The first indication was a distress call from New Geneva Colony. A panicked voice spoke in their harsh language, translated by the Council systems. "Command, this is Patrol 7, we have. Something is wrong with our communications. Equipment is failing across the colony. Request immediate." "Wait, what is that? I see movement in the contact, unknown forces are." The transmission cut to static. Similar calls began coming from all three worlds simultaneously. Forces reported equipment failures, mysterious shadows, and disappearing sentries. But when reinforcements arrived at reported contact locations, they found nothing but disabled surveillance equipment and unconscious guards. "What is happening?" Chancellor demanded. The main display switched to a security camera inside station's administration building. The camera showed Warlord and his guards suddenly looking up in alarm. Lights began going out one by one throughout the building. Emergency lighting cast red shadows as warriors raised their weapons toward sounds that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Then the lights went out completely. When the emergency systems restored minimal lighting 30 seconds later, half of guards were unconscious on the floor. The warlord himself was shouting orders that no one could hear because their communication equipment had been silently destroyed. "How?" whispered Ambassador N, staring at the display in disbelief. The security feeds from all three worlds showed similar scenes. Positions that had been heavily defended minutes earlier were now operating with skeleton crews. Sentries had vanished without alarms being raised. Weapon systems had been disabled by methods that left no trace of sabotage. And still, the monitoring systems detected no human forces. "Phase 2 commencing," announced. The displays switched to show the civilian holding areas where thousands of hostages were being kept. In each location, guards were becoming increasingly agitated as they lost contact with their command structures. Then the real rescue operation began. On Harmony Outpost, civilians in the main detention area suddenly heard a voice speaking in their language through the facility's public address system. "Citizens of Harmony Outpost, this is Captain of the Human Special Operations Command. Remain calm and follow these instructions exactly. In 30 seconds, all lights in your area will go out. When they do, lay down on the floor and do not move until you are told it is safe." Similar announcements played on all three worlds. The watching aliens in the command center listened in amazement as human voices calmly gave instructions in dozens of languages. When the lights went out in the civilian areas, thermal imaging showed what happened next. Figures in advanced camouflage suits moved through the detention areas like ghosts, neutralizing guards with precision strikes that left the aliens unconscious but alive. The human operators moved so quickly and quietly that many guards never realized they were under attack. "Impossible," breathed Admiral. "No one moves that fast." But the humans were just getting started. Security cameras that managed to stay online caught glimpses of tactics that no galactic military force had ever seen. Human soldiers appeared to materialize from solid walls, strike with surgical precision, and vanish again before their targets could respond. On New Geneva Colony, a full squad of warriors was patrolling a civilian area when they simply collapsed one by one, each struck by projectiles fired from positions that thermal scans showed were empty. At station, reinforcements rushing to aid their command post found their route blocked by obstacles that had not existed minutes earlier. When they tried alternate paths, those too were mysteriously obstructed. It was as if the humans were reshaping the battlefield in real time. Phase 3 beginning, reported, extraction. The displays now showed streams of civilians being led through routes that bypassed all remaining positions. The humans had somehow mapped every building, tunnel, and passage on all 3 worlds, creating evacuation paths that avoided enemy contact entirely. But the most disturbing aspect was how the human teams communicated. Radio intercepts revealed conversations that sounded more like casual business meetings than military operations. Delta 26, you have 15 tangos moving toward your position from the east. Copy Control, we see them, taking the scenic route instead. Echo Team, civilian evacuation is ahead of schedule. Can you accelerate the timeline? Already on it, package delivery in 10 minutes. Outstanding. Alpha Team, status on the primary target. Target is secured and ready for pickup. He was not happy about the room service. Elder Morn turned to with confusion in his crystalline features. Target? What target? Their question was answered moments later when a new transmission appeared on the main display. It showed Warlord, but not in his command post. Instead, the leader was sitting in what appeared to be the cargo hold of a human ship, his hands bound with some kind of restraint system. Behind him stood a human soldier in dark combat gear. The human's face was painted with camouflage, but his eyes were clearly visible and absolutely calm. "Warlord," the human said in accented, "you are now a prisoner of the Human Special Operations Command. Your forces on all 3 worlds have been neutralized. Your hostages have been freed. Your invasion has failed." Snarled something in his own language, but the human continued without emotion. "Your warriors are alive but unconscious. They will wake up in approximately 6 hours with headaches but no permanent injuries. Consider this a lesson in what happens when you threaten innocent civilians." The transmission ended. In the command center, the watching aliens sat in stunned silence. The displays showed all 3 worlds simultaneously. Occupation forces were either unconscious, restrained, or fleeing in panic. Civilians were being evacuated to safety by humans who seemed to have appeared from nowhere. The entire operation had taken less than 3 hours. "Status report," said into her headset. "All objectives complete. Civilian casualties, 0. Enemy casualties, 0. Hostile leadership captured. All teams ready for extraction." She turned to face the assembled council representatives. "Rescue operation successful. The hostages are safe." Supreme Chancellor was the first to find his voice. "How?" "Standard hostage rescue procedures," replied, as if what they had just witnessed was routine. "Standard?" Admiral's voice cracked with disbelief. "No military force in the galaxy could have accomplished this." His expression finally changed, showing the slightest hint of confusion. "I do not understand. You asked us to rescue civilians from terrorist forces holding them in fortified positions. This is exactly what our special forces are trained to do. Around the command center, representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations stared at the human ambassador with expressions of awe and terror. They had just learned that what they considered impossible was what humans called a routine Tuesday. The emergency session of the Galactic Peacekeeping Council convened exactly 24 hours after the successful rescue of all hostages from occupation forces. The same chamber that had witnessed desperate debates about impossible choices now hosted a very different kind of discussion. Supreme Chancellor looked around the packed assembly with ancient eyes that had seen many historic moments, but never quite like this one. Every seat was filled. Representatives who normally sent assistants to routine meetings had come in person. The entire galaxy wanted to understand what they had witnessed. Ambassador sat in her usual place in the probationary member section, reviewing reports on her data tablet with the same calm demeanor she had shown throughout the crisis. The only difference was the chair next to her, which now held Warlord in council custody restraints. The former commander had been surprisingly cooperative since his capture. According to the preliminary reports, he had spent most of his interrogation asking detailed questions about human military training and capabilities. His demands for territorial concessions had been replaced by requests for political asylum. The Council recognizes Ambassador of Humanity, Chancellor announced formally. Stood and walked to the central podium. Around her, hundreds of alien eyes focused on the quiet human woman who had somehow orchestrated the impossible. Honored council members, she began, humanity thanks you for the opportunity to assist in resolving the crisis. We are pleased that all civilian hostages were recovered safely. The understated summary of events that had revolutionized galactic military thinking brought murmurs of amazement from the assembly. Intelligence officer stood up. Ambassador, the Council requires clarification about the methods used in this operation. Certainly, what specific aspects would you like explained? Activated a holographic display showing footage from the rescue operation. Images played of human soldiers moving through defended positions like phantoms, neutralizing enemies who never saw them coming, and extracting hostages from situations that had seemed hopeless. How is any of this possible? Asked simply. Looked at the footage with what appeared to be mild interest. I am not sure what you find confusing. These are standard small unit tactics for hostage rescue operations. Standard, Admiral's voice boomed across the chamber. Your forces moved through heavily defended positions without being detected by any of our monitoring systems. Stealth insertion is a basic requirement for special operations, replied. Our teams use techniques appropriate for the mission parameters. Elder Morn leaned forward, his crystalline features reflecting the holographic displays. Your soldiers seem to materialize inside secured buildings. How did they bypass the physical barriers? Multiple entry methods were employed based on structural analysis and defensive positioning, answered matter-of-factly. Underwater infiltration, tunnel systems, aerial insertion, and facility service access points. Ambassador N stood up, his massive frame towering over the assembly. Your warriors moved faster than our sensors could track. They struck from positions that thermal imaging showed were empty. They neutralized forces without killing anyone. These abilities are beyond anything known to galactic civilization. For the first time since entering the chamber, looked genuinely puzzled. Are you asking about non-lethal takedown techniques? Those are required skills for any hostage rescue operation. Civilian safety always takes priority over enemy elimination. The chamber fell silent as the implications of casual words sank in. She was describing capabilities that would revolutionize warfare, and she spoke of them as if they were basic training requirements. Activated another display. this one showing the communications intercepts from human forces during the operation. Your teams coordinated their actions across 3 worlds simultaneously without any detectable command structure. How is that possible? Decentralized Operational Authority replied. Special operations teams are trained to function independently while maintaining mission coordination through encrypted communication networks. But they moved like a single organism, insisted. 48 individuals acting in perfect synchronization across multiple star systems. Nodded as if this was obvious. Cross-training and standardized operational procedures ensure compatibility between different units. Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Special Air Service, and all trained to similar standards for joint operations. The alien names meant nothing to most council members, but the implication was clear. Humanity had multiple organizations capable of the feats they had witnessed. Supreme Chancellor activated his personal display and reviewed the preliminary casualty reports. Ambassador, our records show that your forces neutralized over 800 warriors during this operation, yet not a single enemy combatant was killed. How? Mission parameters minimum necessary force, explained. Lethal force was not required, so it was not employed. Not required, Chancellor's voice carried a note of disbelief. They are legendary warriors, each one is trained from birth for combat. Considered this statement carefully. They are certainly brave fighters, but they were not prepared for asymmetric warfare against opponents using advanced tactical doctrines. What does that mean? Asked Ambassador K of the Crystalline Assembly. It means they were fighting by rules that our forces do not follow, replied. The expected direct confrontation. Our teams provided something else entirely. The discussion continued for another hour, with council members asking increasingly specific questions about human military capabilities. Each answer from revealed new aspects of warfare that the galaxy had never considered. Finally, Elder Morn asked the question that everyone was thinking. Ambassador, exactly how many of these Special Forces units does humanity possess? Consulted her data tablet briefly. Current active Special Operations personnel across all human nations total approximately 215,000 individuals. The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 200,000 warriors who could accomplish what they had just witnessed. And these forces are maintained by how many human nations? Asked weakly. All of them, replied. Every major nation on Earth maintains special operations capabilities. It is considered a basic requirement for national defense. Ambassador N sat down heavily in his chair. 200,000 soldiers who can do the impossible, and every human nation has them. That number represents active special operations personnel only, clarified helpfully. It does not include reserves, veterans, or conventional forces with cross-training in special operations techniques. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. Supreme Chancellor was the first to recover his voice. Ambassador, when humanity requested membership in the Council, were you aware that your military capabilities far exceed anything known to galactic civilization? Looked genuinely surprised by the question. Our military capabilities, honored Chancellor, what we demonstrated was hostage rescue, not military action. Then what would military action look like? Chancellor asked, though his tone suggested he was not sure he wanted to know. His expression became very serious. The Council would never see military action, Supreme Chancellor. Human special forces are trained to end conflicts before they begin. If humanity ever went to war with a galactic power, that power would wake up one morning to find their leadership captured, their military neutralized, and their government replaced by a provisional authority that would negotiate surrender terms. The chamber was so quiet that the soft humming of the life support system seemed loud. And this would be accomplished how quickly? Elder Morn asked in a whisper. Depending on the target's defensive capabilities and geographical distribution, replied thoughtfully, probably between 6 and 18 hours. Warlord spoke for the first time since the session began. His voice was subdued, almost respectful. I have fought across the galaxy for 40 years. I have never encountered anything like your warriors. They are not soldiers. They are something else entirely. Turn to look at the captured warlord. They are protectors, warlord. They exist to defend innocent people from those who would harm them. But how do you train such beings? Asked. What creates warriors who move like spirits and strike like lightning? The same way you create any professional, replied. Selection, training, experience, and dedication to excellence. Supreme Chancellor called for order as murmurs of amazement filled the chamber. When quiet returned, he made an announcement that surprised no one. The Council votes to grant humanity full membership with immediate effect, declared. Furthermore, humanity is hereby granted permanent seats on all military planning committees and strategic defense councils. The vote was unanimous. As the session concluded, and various species began discussing new security arrangements for the galaxy, approached Ambassador near the chamber's exit. I have been studying humanity for months, he said quietly. I thought I understood what your special forces were designed to do, but I was wrong, was I not? Looked at him with those calm human eyes that had troubled him from the beginning. What did you think they were for? War, admitted. I thought you were preparing to conquer the galaxy. Smiled and for the first time saw genuine warmth in her expression. Officer, humans do not conquer. We protect. The galaxy is our home now, and we protect our home. As she walked away to begin humanity's new role in galactic affairs, realized that his months of research had led him to the wrong conclusion entirely. He had spent all that time trying to figure out what humanity was planning to fight. He should have been asking what humanity was planning to protect. The galaxy was about to find out that sometimes the most dangerous beings in the universe are those who have nothing left to prove and everything to defend.